Once again, we see our map of Manhattan with the Hudson River on the left and the East River here. And we're going to be walking across 57th Street. We'll start at 9th Avenue and walk all the way across to the East River. Let's go. Now we'll start our walk on 9th Avenue. There isn't much to see to the west, and we hope to walk all the way to the East River. One of the major two-way east-west streets, 57th Street, was laid out and opened in 1857. Wealthy New Yorkers put up large mansions between 5th and Madison Avenues in the late 1800s. An artist hub developed around the blocks from 6th Avenue to Broadway also in the late 19th century. Following the opening of Carnegie Hall in 1891, after about 1921, art galleries started to supplant residences. Well, here west of 9th Avenue is the Catholic Apostolic Church, and it's from 1886. Well, I'm not sure if they're still holding services here, but the church is still here. Well, here on the corner of 57th and 8th is the Hearst Magazine building from 1928. Later on, many years later, this modern structure was built on top. Between 7th Avenue and Broadway is the Art Students League, a French Renaissance-style building from 1891. Painting, architecture, and sculpture are taught here to both professionals and amateur students. Instructors have included Reginald Marsh, George Bellows, Thomas Hart Benton. Also, artists who have spent time here include Jackson Pollock, Roy Lichtenstein, Robert Rauschenberg, Osamu Noguchi, George O'Keeffe, and countless others. Well, right across from the Art Students League is the Brooklyn Diner, and as it says, the finer diner. Well, it seems out of place on the street, but here it is. On the corner of 7th Avenue is the Osborne Apartments from 1885. Quite a large residence. Sort of dour and stark on the outside, but supposedly the inside is magnificent. Well, the Osborne survives as one of the rare 19th century luxury apartment buildings in New York. Well, this is the Rodin building from 1917, and it housed many artist studios here. It's no longer used for art. It's been converted to a commercial building. We're at the corner of 57th and 7th Avenue, and here we find one of the most prestigious venues in the world for both classical and popular music. It's Carnegie Hall. It was constructed by industrialist and philanthropist Andrew Carnegie between 1889 and 1891. There are over 3,600 seats in 3 auditoriums. It was threatened in the 1960s when Avery Fisher Hall at Lincoln Center was constructed, but Isaac Stern, the violinist, and others, raising a public outcry, saved it. Well, the famous old joke is when a tourist asks, "How do I get to Carnegie Hall?" the reply is, "Practice, practice, practice." And some of those who did their practicing include Zubin Mehta, Frank Sinatra, Vladimir Horowitz, Arthur Rubinstein, Leopold Stokowski, Arturo Toscanini, Leonard Bernstein, Benny Goodman, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Judy Garland, Simon and Garfunkel, Bill Haley and the Comets, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, the Beach Boys, and many, many, many others. Another view of Carnegie Hall. Right next to Carnegie Hall is the Carnegie Hall Tower. From 2016, 712 feet and 60 stories. Right next to Carnegie Hall is the famous Russian Tea Room, and this restaurant opened in 1927. Well, thousands and thousands of famous people have dined here, including Henry Kissinger, Jacqueline Onassis, Rudolf Nureyev, Arthur Rubinstein, and countless others. Starting about a dozen years ago, several very tall, ultra-luxury residential buildings have been constructed. Over the last decade or so, a stretch of 57th Street has become known as Billionaires Row, a group of luxury residential skyscrapers on 57th Street and the surrounding neighborhood. As of 2024, they included the world's 3 tallest residential buildings. At 225 West 57th Street is the Central Park Tower, completed in 2018. It's 1,550 feet high and has 118 stories. Well, right next to the Russian Tea Room on the right, and above Carnegie Hall Tower, is 146 West 57th Street, another of the massive buildings on 57th Street. Well, this is 157 West 57th Street. It's a 75-story apartment building. And the apartments here, some of them go for in the tens of millions of dollars. Well, 157 at 157 West 57th Street was completed in 2014. It's 1,005 feet. And the top 2 floors sold for $100 million in 2015. Now here at 111 West 57th Street is the Steinway Tower. It's 1,438 feet. Built in 2021. There are 60 luxury condos. And it's the thinnest skyscraper in the world. here between 7th and 6th Avenue is the Louis Chaliff School of Dancing from 1917. Here near the corner of 57th Street and Park Avenue is the Four Seasons Hotel, one of the most expensive hotels in the world. With an entrance on 56th Street and an address of 432 Park Avenue, it's not exactly a 57th Street location, but it's just around the corner. This building was built in 2015. It's 1,397 feet. And the top penthouse sold for $88 million. J-Lo and A-Rod lived here at one time. Well, making a slight detour to 58th and 7th, we see the Alwyn Court Apartments from 1907. And it has a French Renaissance exterior. Every square foot literally encrusted with terracotta decorations, crowns and dragons everywhere. And here we see the salamander, the symbol of the French King Francis I, a great art patron of the Renaissance. Well, on the left we see Engine Company 23 of the New York Fire Department. The building is from 1906. On the right we see what was known as originally the Helen Miller Gould Stables. She, the daughter of financier Jay Gould. And this building, in the French Renaissance style, is from 1903. Well, originally used for horses and later on for automobiles. The coachmen and drivers lived on the upper floors. And you can see the hitching posts right there, indicating it was once a stable. Now it's extremely noisy on 57th Street today with a lot of construction going on. But in front of us we see two buildings from 1908, 130 and 140 West 57th Street. And these are examples of the luxury residences on this block. Notice the extremely large windows on both buildings. Well, we're at 57th and 6th Avenue, and we continue our walk east. At the corner of 57th and 6th Avenue, stretching to 58th Street, is Bergdorf Goodman, noted for its luxury women's clothing. Founded in 1899 by Herman Bergdorf and later owned by Edwin Goodman and his son Andrew Goodman. After being located at several locations in Manhattan, the store moved here in 1928. Now, the famous jeweler Van Cleef & Arpels is located within the store. Now, in the movie How to Marry a Millionaire, Lauren Bacall, Betty Grable, and Marilyn Monroe considered the mink department at the store an ideal location to meet men. And here is where Donald Trump allegedly assaulted the journalist E. Jean Carroll in a dressing room. Well, here's a moron directing traffic on 5th Avenue. Well, here's Tiffany & Company. It's famous for its luxury goods, particularly diamond and silver jewelry. It was founded in 1837 by Charles Louis Tiffany and became famous in the early 20th century under the direction of his son, Louis Comfort Tiffany. The store had several locations in Manhattan before moving to this site in 1940. As of 2018, there were 93 stores in the U.S. and 321 worldwide. Why not stop in and pick up a trinket? Here at the southwest corner of 5th Avenue and 57th Street is the Crown Building from 1916. One of the first office buildings erected after passage of the city's 1916 zoning resolution. The Museum of Modern Art's first gallery opened here on the 12th floor in November 1929. Well, here's the Fuller Building at 41 East 57th Street. It's from 1929. It's been called the Brooks Brothers of Art Deco. And here on the corner of Park Avenue and 57th Street is the Ritz Tower, an apartment hotel from 1925. Well, we reached Park Avenue, and this is Park Avenue looking south from 57th Street. And here we are looking north now on Park Avenue and 57th Street. Well, here at 111 East 57th Street was the greatest French restaurant in America, Le Pavillon. It began at the World's Fair of 1939 and then moved here. And it lasted until the 1960s. This is 400 East 57th Street at the corner of 1st Avenue. It's from 1931 in an art modern style. We'll end our walk here at 57th Street in Sutton Place. Sutton Place runs from 53rd Street to 59th Street. Above that, it's called York Avenue. Some notable people who have lived in Sutton Place include Joan Crawford, Maureen O'Hara, Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller, Bill Blass, and Mario Cuomo. The Sutton Place district is considered to be between the East River and 1st or 2nd Avenue and the aforementioned 53rd to 59th Street. In 1875, Effingham Sutton constructed brownstones between 57th Street and 58th Street. And the earliest use of the name Sutton Place dates from 1883. Originally, the street was called Avenue A and it extended all the way up to 89th Street. In 1928, the portion from 59th to 89th was renamed for Sergeant York of World War I fame. These townhouses between 57th and 58th Street are an enclave of wealth and elegance from the early 1920s when factories and tenements largely shared the banks of the East River. The dead-end kids were the denizens of these blocks, which dead-ended into piers at the river. This group was started as an experimental enclave of private houses at a time when most of those who could afford a private house were moving to or already living in Park and 5th Avenue apartments. We've come to the end.